evening. Welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans for fans, where all the content is absolutely free. Coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering. I'm your host tonight, Brian Archer, and as always, we'd encourage you to get onto the Gersnet website and check out our forums for all your latest Rangers news and discussion. We're live tonight on the YouTube channel, and we'd ask that you continue to share the pod on social media, spread the word. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Before I introduce my guests for tonight, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for a number of years, and we're delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They also have a stunning executive lounge in the Ibrox main stand. And for more information on that, email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Right, now to bring in my guests, joining me tonight is Colin Armstrong. Colin, how's things?
Well, could be better, I suppose, Brian. That's probably the best way of putting it. Although I can't say I'm surprised sitting here, which is probably the most damning indictment I can say on Rangers at the moment. You know, I don't think many of us were surprised with that today. So yeah, disappointed but not surprised is probably the best way of summing it up.
Yeah, I think we're all feeling the same, and we'll definitely get into it over the course of the show. Also joining us is Ben Hershaw. Ben, how are you doing?
Yeah, my mood's about as good as the weather here as the storm rages on, yeah. So thanks to Rangers for spoiling another weekend.
Yeah, I think we're all feeling about the same. Colin, I'll come to you first. On the kind of first half, I guess we'll cover the first half in general. For me, it was just another slow, ponderous display, very little chances created. It feels like a continuation of just what we've been watching since last March, really.
Yeah, I mean that Motherwell result, you know, when Clement suffered the sort of first defeat in a while, it seems to have been the turning point. I mean, after Aberdeen and Celtic dropped points yesterday, you know, we knew going into this weekend that either Celtic, Aberdeen, or both were going to drop points, and this was going to be an opportunity to claw some points back. So when you're presented with that situation, you kind of expect a reaction. I know performances haven't been great recently. The Malmo game was good, you know, that gave me some hope, and then we've sort of reverted to type. But given what was at stake today, you know, I expected some kind of reaction. And nothing. I mean, nothing. There was no indication in any of the players' body language today that there was an opportunity there to close the gap and get back in this title race. Nothing there at all. Nothing to give any hope or inspiration. As you say, it was ponderous. I've got real concerns about that midfield now. We just don't control games at all. I mean, I know we've got issues up front, and Dessers continues to frustrate and all the rest of it. But that midfield for me is a real problem. We just do not get to the ball first often enough. We don't control the game enough, and we don't open teams up enough. And it was just so frustrating. And I mean, I know we'll go into some of this stuff later on about. I mean, I couldn't believe there was no changes at half time. I know we'll talk about that later. Just. Yeah, within 20 minutes, I just thought, here we go. I've seen this horror story so many times, and yeah, I mean, towards the end of the game, I was just thinking, well, we're blowing this chance. We've let them off with it. But not only did we let them off with it, we helped them. You know, in a weekend when we should have closed the gap, we've actually extended it for them. So yeah, it's just really disheartening, really disappointing, and. But as I said earlier on, it's not surprising. I think this horror show has been coming for a while with some of the performances we've seen of late.
Ben, is that the most telling thing? That, you know, even after yesterday's result and we had a chance to close the gap, most fans, if you looked online yesterday at 5 o'clock, most fans seen this performance coming, to be honest. And if you look at the first half, you know, Kelly had the better chances and they looked the most dangerous. They had the offside goal, they had a couple of balls flashed across our box that could have easily been tapped in by one of their players. You know, they could probably consider themselves unlucky not even going in ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen it before. That's why we all expected it. You know, how many times over the last few years? I know there's new players in and a different manager stuff, but how many times over the last few years have they slipped up and we've let them off the hook? It's happened time and time again. You know, Kelly did create the better. I mean, Kelly. Their football isn't the most aesthetically pleasing. However, they're the only one really that went out at the start of that game and played with any sort of tempo or really looked like they were in a game. I mean, we look like we're out for a sort of Sunday kickabout, and it just, to me, just didn't look like our players from minute one believed that we were gonna win that. And as Colin said there, like, it's like they were unaware of events that happened yesterday. Like they didn't, the game didn't matter. You know, it was a preseason friendly to them. You know, we've blown a big chance, but it didn't look like anyone in a Rangers jersey knew that they had that big chance, which is an indictment on them and probably the management as well.
Yeah, all around just not really good enough from start to finish. Colin, for me, one of the poorest performers in that first half was Cyril Dessers. Now, I know he gets a lot of criticism. At times it's too much, and people will say, oh, you know, he scores goals, but performances like today are just all too frequent. And for me, is the reason why, yes, his numbers might, you know, be passable at times in terms of being 20 odd goals last season, which for a Rangers striker you can say is acceptable, but his all-round play is just not good enough. And you know, games like today, his first touch is just terrible. He can't hold the ball up. How can you expect any teammates to have any confidence in attacking when as soon as the ball goes up to him, it's just the attack's completely gone at that point?
Yeah, I mean, he killed a few momentous moments today. There was one in particular. I think we had a 3-on-1. It was either 3-on-1 or 3-on-2, and it's so bad. I mean, it really is for a player at that level to give the ball away in that situation the way he did is really poor. And I think even some of his positional sense as well. There was another chance in the first half. Tav got to the byline and hit it across the face of the goal. Now, any striker in that situation, in my opinion anyway, should be between the sticks there, should be playing between the goals, should be running in on goal, looking for a tap-in. Dessers is like way beyond the far post. You know, so the chance of Tav getting it to him is non-existent, really. You know what I mean? So his positional sense, I mean, his numbers do stack up, and I do like Dessers. I like his attitude. He keeps going despite the abuse. But yeah, I mean, he started well. I think he scored, was it 9 in his first 7, but he's not scored for, I think it's 5 now. I heard a stat today, we've only scored 1 goal away from home all season in the league, so that's 4 league games, 1 goal. You know, I mean, Dessers is the main culprit. You know, as the striker, I think he carries a can for that, or the majority of the blame. But you've got to be looking to get goals from elsewhere in the team, and it's just not, there's just no goals in that team. You know what I mean? Middle to front, there is no goals. I don't see goals coming for the likes of Cherny, from Bajrami. I don't see where the goals are coming from. And this is, you know, again, we'll probably come on and talk about this later on, but this is when I get really frustrated about our transfer business in the summer. You know, we got told all summer, you know, we didn't really have a huge budget. We were having to sell before we buy. You know, if that's the case, why are we spending 2.5 million on Igmani? Do you know what I mean? He maybe is a good prospect, but we needed to be shrewder with the money that we had. We needed players in there that could have an impact straight away. We knew there was issues with Dessers. I'm no convinced by Danilo either, to be honest with you. And, you know, I think he misses too many chances as well. It was obvious to me anyway, and to most Rangers supporters I spoke to, it was obvious we needed a striker. You know, everyone was talking about Shanklin, but we needed goals in that team. And to spend £2.5 million on a player whom, you know, Clement himself has said isn't up to scratch, it'll take him a while to get used to this level, beggars belief to me, because it was obvious that you can't rely on Dessers every week. He's not a 90 minutes every week type player. He's going to go through periods like this when, you know, he's not scoring and he's not really contributing in any meaningful way. So as much as I look at Dessers and I think he's no doubt about it, he's part of the problem. Why was that problem not addressed in the summer? Why are we not getting players in that can contribute now, not ones that are never going to contribute in 2 years' time? We didn't have that luxury, I don't think, given the budget. So, yeah, it's disappointing, and as I said earlier on, I do quite like Dessers, but he's part of the problem. There's no doubt about that. There's far too many of these performances. He's missing far too many chances, and he's killing moves. He's absolutely, anytime the team does get a wee bit of momentum, more often than not, it's breaking down at him. And yeah, it's frustrating to see, and there's no doubt about it. It's a problem now.
Yeah, Ben, it's clear that we've got a lot of problems as a team, but is that lack of goals and failure to address that in the summer one of the biggest ones? I mean, for players playing around Dessers, they must see what we're seeing in that the play's breaking down every time it goes to him, so that can't be giving them much confidence in terms of Cherny, Barami, Lawrence players playing in and around him who try to get up and support. They must be thinking, why would I bother running to get up and support him if he's just going to lose the ball anyway? So is that the kind of biggest problem that needed to be addressed, was to add more goals to the team, and we've clearly failed to do so?
Like, the problems throughout the club are numerous, and are growing. However, I've said, and I'm far from alone in this, I've said Rangers will not win a league with Cyril Dessers as our starting number 9. It's just not going to happen. The last time I was on the pod, a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago, we were talking about him as well, and he was scoring goals at that stage. And I said, listen, his overall play isn't great, but he's putting the ball in net. Now, that's the numbers have dried up. So if he's not doing that, and he's now affecting us in terms of that one that Colin was talking about, I wanted to talk about as well. I mean, the 3-on, I think, I'm not sure if it's 3-on-1 or 3-on-2, but it's a simple 5-6 yard pass. I mean, you expect that from a Sunday League player, let alone a Rangers centre forward. The lack of goals. I think the problem is that we were so reliant on him at the start of the season, is that once he stopped scoring, there's nobody else scoring, and the fact that us as a club and as a management did not address that, I mean, it's baffling to me. I mean, if you look at our games, we go away to Dundee United, we win 1-0, we beat Hibs 1-0, and both of those goals came out of, particularly the second one against Hibs, the first goal against Hibs was a moment of magic from Tom Lawrence. The other one was a good run from Tom Lawrence. But other than that, even in those games, we didn't look like we were going to score at all. So if your striker's not looking like he's going to score, he's breaking down moves, you have very little on the bench right now that you could guarantee goals springing on. And then you're relying on one player to make, a moment of magic, which ain't going to come in every game. Then it's a recipe for disaster, and that's proven to be the case today. But yeah, it's you can hardly understand how we could have gone into the season. I mean, this is an ongoing theme for the club. Going back a few years, if we'd had a striker towards the end of the season, we may well have won a Europa League. It goes back as far as that. We didn't address it. That summer. After that, we still haven't addressed it, and it's not good enough. I think Egeman could be a good player, and I think he will be a good player. But as Colin said, we need a player that can impact us right now, not in 2 years' time. Unfortunately, we're not in a position where we've got all this quality in there, and we can bring through a player and give him the bits and pieces to encourage him and to help his career progress. We need impact now, as we're falling further and further behind this title race.
Yeah, definitely. Colin, Ben mentioned the results against Dundee United and Hibs there, and I know Clement kind of mentioned it today about the 4 clean sheets and the bounce after the firm game. But to be honest, it's kind of felt like we've been just getting by, and this type of performance and result has been in the post. I mean, we beat Dundee United and Hibs by 1 goal. We beat St Johnstone by more than that, but it was a struggle. It's felt like it's been a slog ever since that Old Firm game, even though we went on 4 wins on the bounce or whatever it was, but it just feels like it's always a slog at the minute.
Yeah, I think a slog is the ideal word to describe it. Watching Rangers as a slog at the moment, and watching them huff and puff and trying to break teams down. Again, I've asked this a few times. I'm still not entirely sure what Clement's game plan is. I don't see any sort of visible, okay, he's trying to do this, he's trying to do that. I mean, we can, move the ball about from side to side, but it never really goes forward. To be honest with you, it's turgid at times to watch the football that's been produced at the moment. And yeah, it does feel like a result like this was coming, because I mean, when was the last time we scalped a team? You know what I mean? Rangers teams should be doing that every now and again. There should be a 4-0 and a 5-0 in there. I'm struggling to remember the last time we've done it. I'd got a wee bit of hope for the Malmo game. I mean, I was really impressed with us that night. I thought we played really, really well. And when you start to think, okay, he's brought in a few new players, trying to get them bedded in. And after that game, I thought, you know what, maybe it's clicking. Maybe this rebuild is going to work. Maybe this long-term thing will work. And then the following game, I think it was the Hibs games, and we were turgid again. And then we got scalped off. I think it was Lyon the following week. And it's been a struggle ever since. So, I mean, some of the stuff that Clement's been saying in, the post-match interviews, some of the stuff he said today worries me. He talks about potential and, long-term, and I get all that, right? And if that's what the board were saying that they wanted to do, they wanted to lower the age of the squad and get hungry players in and build from there. Right? Okay, that's what we need to do, and that's the plan. But you have to see visible signs of progress, that there is some sort of, all right, we're maybe not quite there yet, but there's definitely a feeling that things are clicking and we're moving forward, and a sense that further down the line things will be better. I'm not seeing any of that. I think we're regressing at a rapid rate. I think we're actually worse off now than we were under Michael Beale, and it makes you wonder if we do reach a point where, and it could be coming sooner rather than later, if we end up 9 points behind Aberdeen, 9 points behind Aberdeen, I think we're in, his position's untenable at that point. Whether the board would think that, I don't know. But, you're then in the position, if we are going to look at changing the manager, we've brought in all these new players, and someone else is going to come in and say, well, I don't want any of these players. And we're back to where we were the year before and the year before that. And this whole cycle starts again. So, yeah, long-term plans, great. If that's what the club are trying to do. But there has to be visible signs that this is working and that there's improvement and progress. And something, see, if we're going to finish second, the very least I want to be is entertained. I want to enjoy going to Ibrox. And I don't know anyone that does at the moment. I don't know anyone who enjoys going to Ibrox. I mean, all the games are a brutal watch. We're scraping by, as you say. It's always by the odd goal. I saw someone put on Twitter the day during the game, I actually want us to concede so we can get a reaction. And I'm thinking, I've not got any confidence in this team to score one, let alone two. If we go a goal behind, I think that's it. I just don't see enough in this team to get the required amount of goals to then go on and win a game. So, yeah, long-term plan, sorry, brilliant. I need to see progress, and I'm just not seeing it at the moment. And in fact, it's the opposite. We're going back the way, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the only people that might enjoy going to Ibrox pretty soon is the opposition, to be honest, the way we are playing at the minute. Ben, to bring it back to...
Sorry, Brian, the Kelly boy the day after the interview, he said it. Was it Stuart Finlayson or whatever his name is? He said after the game, we fancied it today. I think that tells you everything you need to know. Teams are coming in against us fancying it. That tells you everything you need to know.
I don't think they'd won a domestic game all season.
They won last week.
So far. They won one last week.
Or the last game.
I seen a stat that they hadn't kept a clean sheet until today domestically. I mean, that tells you kind of everything you need to know, to be honest. Ben, we get to half time, and the first half has been absolutely abysmal. I was kind of expecting not just a reaction, but at least one substitution. I thought the game was crying out for Eggman at that point to at least come on and try and inject a bit of invention. We know he's raw and he's not the kind of final product yet, and he's still young, but the glimpses we have seen of him, he's at least got a bit of something. He'll try something off the cuff, he'll make a run, he's got a decent touch, he can bring others into play. But were you surprised not to see any changes at half time? I mean, to be honest, you could have took a number of them off.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we were invention you use there is the correct word. I mean, we were lacking that. It's so much. We were losing out. The first to the ball, which is a basic requirement for any football team. From the off, and I've actually seen the manager make changes. 2 changes at halftime. I think he did in the last game. And he has done more recently, or a few times, 2 changes half time, when I've thought, nah, it's been okay. And today we were crying out to do it. We're crying out for somebody to show a bit of interest, to somebody to kind of, get a rocket up us and take a game by the scruff of the neck, because Killy had missed chances and stuff in the first half, but we still could have gone out in the second half and stamped our authority. But the manager, it does come across as quite stubborn to me. And I could, when you've had, Egerman is raw and there will be mistakes in there, but there's the potential to improve in there. I honestly don't see that with Dessers. I see Dessers, he is what he is. He's not going to get better. He will take chances from time to time, but I think Egerman could bring something to us from that point of view, or even point of view of moving players positionally. Bajrami playing closer to the striker, if that is still Dessers. Something should change, because the game was going in one direction and a poor direction from us. We were lethargic at best, and the manager kind of set the tone by saying, there's two ways of looking at it. Of course, you can go out there and you can say, right, I want to give these players a chance to correct it, but it's up to him to impact the game. Then that's what he's paid the money for. So go out and do it. So yeah, I certainly would have welcomed changes at halftime.
Yeah. Colin, to go back to what you were saying around the long-term planning thing, if that's the club's approach and we're going for this long-term plan and lowering the average age of the squad, then all those points are laudable, and in the long term they might bring about the results that you want. But is this not a good opportunity to be trying to give some of our own youngsters some minutes? I mean, if we don't have anybody in the academy that's capable of at least showing a bit more enthusiasm and desire than what we've seen from some of those players on the park today, then why bother having an academy? Why not just close it down and save ourselves a couple of million a year?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely think that they bring the young boys in it's the go-to card sometimes, isn't it? It's when things are going wrong, and I'm not always convinced that bringing young players into the current environment is the best thing to do. Because it feels obvious to me that Ibrox is going to be pretty toxic for the next few weeks. So we're playing St Mirren next Sunday. Celtic and Aberdeen will be playing on the Saturday. If they both win their respective games, we're going into Sunday's game 9 points clear. 9 points behind. If we've not scored in the first 20-25 minutes, Ibrox is going to start turning on the group. And bringing young players into that environment, is that the best thing to do? I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced putting that kind of pressure on some of the boys would be the right thing to do. I just think. I understand why they've done what they wanted to do, and a lot of supporters were asking for it. There was some deadwood in there, guys that had been over the course and had failed year in, year out, so to speak. I do wonder if I've maybe up to just too much experience. And we've left. We're down to the bare bones in terms of experience, and we've brought in guys that just. The one thing that team really lacks is leadership. There's no one in there that takes a game by the scruff of the neck and gets everybody sort of going in one direction. It looks like a team of individuals at times. I don't get the sense that there's any collective spirit. I certainly don't get the sense that they enjoy playing for the managers. I just don't get the sense that there's much togetherness in this group at all. And so it's worrying. And I think bringing young players into that. I mean, I suppose it's a bigger debate about what's the point in having an academy. I always feel that an academy isn't there just to produce players for us. It's there to help to improve players and get to whatever level that they're going to play at. I think Rangers have a responsibility. I think all clubs have a responsibility to try and nurture and produce talent. Maybe not for themselves. The majority of them will go on and have careers elsewhere, but I think all football clubs have that responsibility. So this notion that we can just produce player after player after player from the academy and bring them into the first team, I genuinely don't think that's realistic. Rangers have never really had a history of doing that. I think the one time in my life when they did was when the likes of Hutton and Charlie Adam and McGregor, one sort of group, all came through at the same time. So yeah, I'm not convinced that putting the young boys in would be the answer. To be honest with you, I think we actually need a bit of leadership in there. I think that's what we're missing.
Yeah, but Ben, Colin talks about their lack of leadership on the park, and for me, it was no more apparent than the goal that Kelly scored and John Souttar's part in it. When you want your kind of centre half to just show a bit of leadership and go and deal with a long ball, he completely misses it and gets himself tangled up with the striker, and the striker gets the better of him and puts it away. But Souttar's earned a lot of praise this week for his performance for Scotland. And his performances for us this season. Probably Leon game aside, a lot of people have been praising him, but for me, those kind of mistakes are just too many from him. He's always got that in him for me.
Yeah, look, I like Souttar to a point, and I do think he probably gets more criticism than he's due overall. I think he's been better this season since he's moved on to when Golson's left. But that is in him. There's no doubt about that. It's in him, and we've seen it several times before. It's very passive, very weak defending. I didn't see a Scotland game, so I don't know how he played or whatever. But he's got to be stronger there. It's as simple as that. But again, does it come down to the depth of the squad? There's another player there that basically doesn't have any competition for his place, or has very little competition for his place. Balogun potentially, but he knows realistically Balogun's not going to be playing week in, week out. So he's assured of his place. And I don't think any player in any team should ever be that way. You're not going to get the best out of them from that. But yeah, no, there's no doubt that he far from covered himself in glory today. But I think we have bigger problems than John Souttar at the minute.
Yeah, maybe so. Colin, for me, I thought our reaction after going a goal behind was really poor. Now, I know it was late on in the game, but to me, it just seemed like we kind of accepted the defeat as soon as they scored. And it really felt like this is a team that just don't believe themselves that they can achieve anything this season.
And I think that comes down to the leadership thing. They're all looking to each other for inspiration, and no one's sort of driving that team on and saying, right, come on, we can get something here. There was no reaction at any point today. There should have been a reaction from the first whistle, because we've been presented with an opportunity to claw back some points. That's your motivation. The 11 players that were selected to start for Rangers, they should have been climbing a wall to get on that pitch today and try and get the result. And there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. And the manner of the goal, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's so bad at this level. I mean, I've always had some concerns about Souttar. I think he's got far too many of them moments in him. And I think he's involved in far too many goals that we concede. I don't think Butland covered himself in goal. He's been a bit of a bomb scare for me this season. That sort of assurance that was there last season is gone. There was an incident earlier on in the first half where he came out and he made a good save to sort of retrieve the situation, but it seemed to me to be a fairly simple, just come out and collect the ball, and he made a bit of an arse at, and then he's had to sort of make a good save to retrieve the situation. What Butland's doing there at that point, I don't know. But for me, the minute Souttar sees him, he should just be saying, right, this is going in the stand, not waiting for Butland to come and collect it. And then, as you say, the reactions is zero. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect a reaction, because there was nothing there all day to make you think that we were going to get anything. I mean, Igamani had a wee chance just at the end. It was really unlucky. If that had been in, it would have been a really good goal. But I didn't expect a reaction, because there's nothing in that group that makes me believe that they have the belief that they can do it. You know what I mean? I think we've got an early indication of this season in the Celtic game. We started really well, and we did start well in that game. We were the better team, and then Celtic got the goal that was chopped off, and that was rather than looking at that as, okay, we've got away with that, we're still on top, let's keep going. They just crumbled. They just accepted their fate. Like, this is it. the goal's been chopped off, but the next one's coming soon. So you know what I mean, and that's just the feeling I get with this team. There's not enough grit, not enough determination. I don't think enough of them appreciate the size of the club that they're at and the expectation levels that come with that. Far too many of them are too passive and just accept it. And I didn't expect any reaction after the goal because there hadn't been a reaction all game. You know, there wasn't a reaction from the first whistle. There wasn't a reaction at half time when there should have been. You know, you expect your manager to go in there. I mean, said earlier on how he never made any changes is beyond me. But the very least they should be doing is getting them motivated again and saying, look, we've got a real opportunity to close that points gap, get out there and start performing. No reaction, absolutely none. And there was no reaction when we made the various changes that we made. So why would you expect a reaction when we go a goal behind? Because it's just not in them. It's not in this group. So yeah, really poor again. You know, it's watching it week in, week out, and you know, the same movie that we've seen so many times before. It's just really, really disappointing.
Yeah, Ben, and it feels like we kind of know how this movie ends. We've seen it before, and now questions are now starting to be asked of the manager and his future. For you, is that justified, given that he's been here a year? And I think, as far as most would call it, we seem to have gone backwards in terms of where we were when he first came in.
Yeah, I'm in two minds about it. Just to touch on the point about a reaction, and it ties in with the manager. Not to let the players off the hook by any stretch of imagination, because they should be able to find that reaction or find that desire or that, you know, determination, leadership themselves. However, I think some of the things he has been saying lately shows that he doesn't get the size of the club, or he doesn't. You know, how are they expected to find the reaction when, you know, we get humped across the city, and then straight after the game the manager saying, but we pumped Ross County last week, or today we lose this game. And the manager's saying, yeah, but we've kept clean sheets lately. I mean, how are they going to expect better of themselves and expect a reaction if the manager's kind of pointing to stupid things like that? You know, the only game that matters is the one you've just played or the next game ahead of you. You know, the idea that we could talk, I know I'm touching on old ground, but the idea that we could go, well, we lost 3-0 to Celtic, but sure, at least we can look back and say we played well, had the best victory in a few years against Ross County. You know, that's a problem. You're not going to get a reaction from players if that is the reaction of a manager. So on his long term, I'm in two minds. I think the biggest thing for me that is wanting me to not change it right now is almost fear of being back in the same place, as Colin talked about earlier. You know, the biggest thing going into this season that I said was we cannot be in the same situation come October or come November where, you know, we're getting a new manager in, the new manager doesn't like the players, we've got to rebuild again next summer, then it happens again and again and again. But that at the same time shouldn't be a reason to keep him in a job. The thing that concerns me the most, now I went into the season looking at our squad and looking where we were, and to be honest, I didn't expect us to win the league. I expected us to be second best, but what I wanted to see was, as Colin again said earlier, is I want to be entertained. I want to enjoy watching the team. I mean, it's a chore to watch Rangers right now. I do not enjoy it whatsoever. And the problem is we are building. There is this rebuild. There is all this talk of the future. But I want to see what's he. I know it's not the be all end all. If we'd have gone there the day and we'd have won 1-0, nobody would have really said, oh, well, we didn't play well, or what's the style. But what is the style? What are we trying to do? You know, it's the same in every game. We win 2-0 against St Johnstone, and still, even in that game, you don't play well. Even in that game, it's a chore. You know, what is Clement? Haven't been in the building for a year. Now brought in players. You know, he's had Diamande the end of the last season. He's had him now. There's no improvement there. What is he trying to do with this team? Why are we not seeing his own stamp on this club, on this side? By now, I know there's other distractions, there's other problems at the club, and he has had to deal with a lot, and it isn't all his fault. But there's no encouragement there. I mean, I would say, Bale had to go at the time. I was in favour of Gio going at the time, but we're as bad as we were under Gio now, and that's what is it now? 2 years later.
Colin, where are you at with the manager? Does he get a bit of leeway because of how much of a shambles everything is up above him, or is it, are we right to be kind of asking questions of his future? Where do you stand on it?
I mean, I think, he deserves the criticism. There's no doubt about that. You know what I mean? There was an early new manager bounce. I mean, again, we were an efficient team when he first came in. I wouldn't say we were a particularly brilliant to watch team, but we were efficient and we were winning games. And he did make a fist of that title at a time when, no one gave us a chance. And then we actually, at one point we were top of the league, and then it just crumbles, and the sort of usual scenario happens. And it's been from that point that some of the stuff that he's come out and said that I've thought, okay, not sure I'm enjoying that. Not sure I agree with that. Some of the stuff he's come out with is a bit bizarre at times, but I think ironically the situation above him might be what saves him, because there's so many senior positions not filled at the moment. How would the club function in terms of sacking a manager and getting into rehiring a manager? You know what I mean? They're looking for a CEO. They're looking for a new chairman. Is a director of football they're looking for as well? I think the place is down to the bare bones as it is. So ironically, I think that's a situation that might save his skin, but he's lost the fan base. I don't think there's any doubt about that. When I was looking through Twitter today, I didn't see anyone saying, no, we need to give him time. I think the fan base is gone. I think when that happens, it very, very rarely ends well. So I think his job is probably secure at the moment because of the shambles going on above him. I think he's took advantage of that as well. I think that's how he got his extension. I think his agent was very shrewd and saw it was a shambles. And Clement made a few comments about this isn't what I signed up for, all that kind of stuff. And then boom, about a week later, it's announced he's got a year extension. I wonder if behind the scenes, Clement has threatened to walk unless he got an extension, because we were such a shambles at that time. That would have just added to the shambles that was already there, and the club just wouldn't have accepted that. So I think he's been quite shrewd in getting his extension. But the current situation at Rangers, I think, means that he's probably safe, because there's no one in the building to carry out the functions that need to be carried out in terms of sacking a manager, looking at potential replacements, interviewing, all that kind of stuff. And by the way, given our recent run of recruiting managers, would you trust? Would you trust this club to get the right appointment? Well, you wouldn't. I would feel if you were to sack Clement now, we would be back in the same situation in a year's time. You know what I mean? It's from top to bottom, we've just made the wrong appointments time after time. And I'm not just talking about manager, I'm talking about CEO and all the rest of it. We have brought the wrong people into the club, and that's why we are there now. It's just bad decision making throughout the club has got us to this position. In terms of questions on Clement, they're legitimate. You know what I mean? And they'll be even more legitimate. I mean, based on that performance today, I think we could be in for a scudding at Pittodrie. I really do. I think we could be looking at a 3 or 4 here, because they will really fancy it. And if that happens, given that if Aberdeen win next week and we beat St Mirren and we're going into the game a week on Wednesday, as things are at the moment, they will fancy that. They will think that would give them real hope of finishing second to go 9 points clear of us, come November. I think that's sacking territory. I do. If you're 9 points off second place in November, I don't see that anything else other than sacking territory. But I just wonder, because of the state the club's in at the moment, whether they'll be in a position to do that. So I think he could be there for a wee bit longer yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, Colin, everyone's talking about the Aberdeen game. I'm kind of concerned about the St Mirren game next weekend. Like, I think for me, that's the most immediate concern. I could very well see a dropping points at Ibrox next weekend. And again, you're talking about 9 points behind Aberdeen. It could very well be even worse than that, to be honest, which doesn't really bear thinking about, but it's not out with the realms of possibility. Ben, does the decision to give Clement that contract extension look even more puzzling by the week to you? And do we need to fix the issues above Clement before we even start talking about the manager's future?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're even having the conversation about his future probably answers the first question. I didn't understand getting a new contract at the time. I thought he was doing an okay job, and I was thinking at that stage he would be okay. Although the end of the season was a bit worrying, but I thought, with his new players coming in and stuff like that, I thought I would have liked him to have been in the position, but I didn't think he did anything that merited him getting an extension on his deal. That was just basically a show of strength, a show of togetherness. And I think it was a distraction from the whole not starting the season at Ibrox, or was meant to be anyway, as much as anything else. But yeah, it didn't make sense then, and it certainly doesn't. It looks worse day by day. Yeah. Sorry, what was your second part of your question?
So it was more around, do we need to fix everything above the manager before we can even start to have a conversation about the manager's position?
Yeah, again, that needs addressed. But how long has it needed addressed for? I mean, how long is it since Bisgrove's gone now? It's been an awful long time. And again, I'm not an expert in business, but to me, surely to goodness, businesses work in the fashion that they have an almost a short list for certain people, while the other ones are in position. That if something were to happen either way, that the transition is smooth, and our transitions have been anything but smooth, let's be honest. So yeah, I think not necessarily for Clement, but also for, if we were going to make the change, I don't think our decent manager is going to want to come into a club not knowing who's going to be above them, and things like that. And I don't think it's fair on them to come in, and then suddenly there's changes in the hierarchy around there. Okay, that may be the case, and they may have to deal with it. But you're going to want to work, and I think it would be fair to come on to be able to work with consistent people, as opposed to the chaos that he's been under. But yeah, as Colin said, I do think the way the club is now will probably keep him in the job, regardless of how things have been or are going in the short term.
Colin and Ben mentioned at the end around succession planning. We seem to be one of the worst clubs I can think of for succession planning. We just don't do it. We appoint people and assume that they're going to be there forever. And there never seems to be any plans of what happens if this person leaves. Who's next in line to be recruiting for any position within the club. To be honest, it just seems like we're just watching from one disaster to the next.
Yeah, and I think that is probably an issue in terms of the standard of applicants we're looking at, because probably anyone, not just for the manager's job, for like CEO and stuff like that, any sort of CEO worth their salt would maybe look at Rangers and think, it's a bin fire. I'm just not going anywhere near that. Now, sometimes that's the best situation to go into a job, because there's so much to improve that you can't really fail. If the place is at the lowest ebb, then you think that's something I can work with. I can get so many improvements in there and get us functioning again. But the problem is the club is so dysfunctional that people coming in would look and think, well, I don't want to go into that because I don't know who my boss is from 1 week to the next, and there's no chairman there. It just seems like a complete and utter bin fire. So yeah, I just wonder if that's part of the reason why we've not appointed a CEO yet. I just wonder if we're having difficulty attracting the sort of required standard of applicant, because they'll be looking at it and thinking, just don't want to get involved in that. So yeah, it's worrying because it has an impact on everything we do. You know what I mean? It's we're sitting here talking just now saying Clement will probably keep his job because the club is so dysfunctional at the moment that they can't really put themselves in a position to sack him. That in itself is a bit of a disgrace. You know what I mean? That a club is so dysfunctional that they're keeping a manager on despite results. So it is just, yeah, I mean, sort of 2012 and everything that followed that aside, I can't remember Rangers being this dysfunctional. When we got back into the top tier, and was it 2016, 17, around about then, and Kashina and all that, we were a bit of a shambles then. But then Gerrard comes in and there was just a sense that things were improving and we were coming a bit more like we used to be, like a well-run club, and it's just went completely the other way. I mean, even something as basic as ticketing. You know, I mean, I was at the Lyon game, you know, and fans had the wrong tickets because Rangers had sent out tickets for the game coming up on Thursday, a couple of days before the Lyon game. So fans had just printed off those tickets, thinking that, you know, those were the Lyon tickets, and it was actually the Steaua Bucharest tickets. So there's hundreds, like when I was trying to get into the Govan Rear, like hundreds of people have all got the wrong ticket. You know what I mean? Because the club just doesn't function in the way that it should, even down to sort of basic stuff like ticketing. So it's a huge worry, because we're stumbling from one disaster to the next disaster, and it's just you just wonder when it's going to end. And I'm starting to think never. You know, it just feels like we are in this constant loop of nonsense, and it's just frustrating, very frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. Ben, we've got 3 games in the next 10 days. This could be a massive period for the manager, and if he has any hope of turning things around, do you have any faith that going into these 3 games, or coming out of these 3 games, we can look back and see that we see any sign of progress?
I do still expect 3 wins for those 3 games. I do, but I think that's down probably to the opposition as well. I think there'll be 3 games, but I think they'll be close, and I think we'll get over the line. But it will be a case of getting over the line. I don't see things dramatically improving in terms of performances and things like that. The problem at this minute in time is you feel like you can go into those games, you win 2 of them, you win 3 of them, but you always feel like that today's performance is going to come again. You know, it's a matter of waiting for it. None of us were shocked by it, and none of us will be shocked even if we do win the next 3 games. That game number 4 that happens again, or whatever, because it's in this team, it's in us at this minute in time, to be producing that. So yeah, I think we can stabilize it currently, but I don't think we're going to take very many steps forward. No.
Yeah, it's been interesting 10 days. I think it'll be 3 difficult games. I don't think any of them will be easy, Colin. One of the things I wanted to touch on, I know I've kind of touched on it already a bit, was around the manager's post-match comments previously and today. I mean, today he talked about, you know, players having not played in the environment like Rugby Park before, and the more they play here, the more they'll get used to it, all that kind of stuff. It all just feels like excuses at this point, and I don't want to hear. I don't really want to hear from him after a defeat. I'm getting to the point where if we get beat, I don't want to hear from him anymore. He's just constantly putting his foot in it in the press conferences and constantly coming out and just excuse after excuse.
Yeah, and it started really quickly the minute things started to go south. You know, that Motherwell game at Ibrox. Then there was the whole Dundee debacle. You know, the game was off and off and off. And then when we finally played there, I think we dropped points that night. And some of his comments that night were just bizarre. I'm like you. I'm starting to switch off to him. I really am. Some of his comments just really, really concern me. And see this thing with the pitch. You know what I mean? I know it slows the game down, and I know, and it's not ideal that we have these pitches in the top tier in Scotland. But it's a flat surface, and you can play football on it. And you know, the train on these pitches at Murray Park. I am just sick of hearing every time we go to that ground, oh, the pitch. They're professional football players who are paid a lot of money. They should be able to deal with the pitch. They should also be able to deal with the wind. You know, we've got the better players than Kilmarnock. If we don't beat them, then it's not because of the pitch. It's because something fundamentally has went wrong with us and how we've went about the game. So the minute he talks about stuff like that, I just switch off. People were pointing out today, I noticed that he made a comment 2 or 3 months back that come October, you would see a better Rangers team. And again, it ties back to what I'm saying earlier on, that there's just no signs of improvement. There are no signs of progress. If anything, it's it's going the other way. You know, we're seeing a team that's becoming more disjointed and more dysfunctional. And, you know, because we're Rangers, teams, they smell blood. You know what I mean? As I said earlier on, the boy Finlay, we fancied it today. Aberdeen will fancy it a week on Wednesday. They will really fancy it because the boy that's come in there, you know, he's come in and done a really good job. People think to himself, I've got a chance to go 9 points clear and give himself a real chance to get guaranteed European football next season, because I think if second place is a one playoff for the Europa, but guaranteed conference. You know what I mean? So that would be huge income for Aberdeen. You know what I mean? To sort of get guaranteed European football. If they go 9 points clear, they're in with a real shout at doing that. So yeah, the excuses, and that's what it's starting to sound like now. With Clement, it's just excuse after excuse after excuse. We've got to October. I don't see an improved Rangers team here at all. I see one that's actually worse than it was 6-7 months ago. And so when he's coming out with all this stuff, it doesn't inspire confidence. Is probably the kindest way of putting it. You know what I mean? I don't feel anything he says in the press conference assures me in any way that we're on the right path. Actually, it's the contrary. I start to look up and think we've got the wrong manager here, and he's not going to take us anywhere. So, I mean, I hope I'm wrong. You know, he might miraculously turn this round. But from where I'm sitting right now, I don't see it, and I don't have any confidence in him at all. I've tried this season. I've tried to be sort of positive way and keep going. I've had debates with my mates on WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff. And you know, the wee flickers of, you know, like the Malmo game, you think, oh, we've maybe turned the corner, but it's just not enough. You know, one game every 6-7 it doesn't represent progress for me. So I feel we're on the wrong path, and you know, this is Clement. He's had 2 windows now. I think we should be further down the line than we are. And yeah, some of the stuff he says in press conferences alarms me, to say the least.
Yeah, and Ben, if we look at Aberdeen, who are obviously playing 10 days' time, their progress this season kind of dispels some of the myths that Clement's been coming away with around we need time, we need transfer windows to do the rebuild, we don't have much money to spend. You know, they appear to have got what on the face of it looks like a competent manager, and they sold their best striker to bring in a bit of money, and they've made some shrewd signings, and they've hit the ground running. You know, there's no talk over there about how much time they need to bed in players and how it will take X number of months to see the best of the new manager's team.
Yeah, no doubt. I just say when I said there about us going to have 3 wins and down to the opposition, I had the Motherwell in the Aberdeen game right the wrong way in my head. So I thought we were playing Motherwell and then Aberdeen. So yeah, I would say 2 wins and then a more trickier game. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, there's no doubt. You know, it is rare to see it progress as quickly as it has under Aberdeen. And it would be interesting to see a couple of bad results. Could the wheels fall off there? But you would expect to see some level of improvement, particularly with manager now. As we said, he's a year in. He's had 2 transfer windows. You know, if the players that you're bringing in are of a certain quality, and you've also already got quality there, and you've got mentality, and you've got a system, a style of play, and good coaching, good training, then you should be seeing improvement. I mean, week on week, it doesn't necessarily take you know, a whole season, half a season, whatever it is. But I had almost forgotten about those comments about October. And I'm sure maybe others had. But yeah, it is worrying that we're now at October and we seem to be getting worse, let alone improving. So yeah, Aberdeen is proof that if it's done in the right way, you know, then you can get the improvement from that. But then it also comes back to the issue of the club in general being run in the right way. You know, you talk about them selling their best striker. Now, when we had players, I know, again, I'm going back to days, but when we had Morelos, we had Kent, we had those players at their best level, and we could have sold them and invested and improved the entire club and the entire squad. We chose not to. And now we're kind of paying the price for that. Okay, yes, we got a title out of that. But in the long term, it seems that it was the wrong decision. So yeah, it can be done quicker than it is, and it is an excuse to this. It's an easy excuse to stand behind and say we need time, we need time, we need time. There comes a point when you've had time, or how much time do you need, or can we see some shoots of improvement, or give us something to kind of grab onto and believe in?
Yeah, definitely. Calling back to Ibrox on Thursday night against FCSB. I've got a feeling the atmosphere is going to be a bit hostile after today's performance, but the team kind of owes the fans a bit of a performance, do they not?
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes think the European games the atmosphere is a bit different. It's a bit of a break for the bread and butter stuff. I'm not sure the atmosphere on Thursday will be particularly toxic unless it goes spectacularly tits up, which it could do. I'm more worried about Sunday for that respect, because obviously there's every chance we'll be going into that game, 9 points behind, and if we're slogging it out again, then I think Ibrox will become a bit restless. But Thursday night, yeah, that's what I mean. Thursday nights at Ibrox aren't like much fun anymore. You always had that previously, Europa League. You always look forward to Europa League. Can't really say I'm feeling that these days either. So it's, I'll be there. I'll look forward to it because I'll be going with my son, and we'll get a couple of pints before it and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of belief in us getting a result and playing well, then I can't say I'm feeling it, which is a shame, because the Thursday nights have been such good fun over the last few years. It's a shame that we don't seem to have them anymore either.
Yeah, it feels like they're losing a bit of their appeal this season, Thursday nights at Ibrox.
Yeah.
Ben, but there's never an easy opposition in European competition. I don't really know what to expect from FCSB. I know Gigi Bicali had kind of made comments that they were going to rest a bunch of players. I don't know how seriously to take anything he says, to be honest. But for me, it's massively important that we get the win if we have any aspirations of getting into the next round. You kind of need to win these home games, don't you?
Yeah, I'm far from an expert on them, but I follow West Ham down south, and they played them. I think it was either last year or the year before in the Europa League or the Conference League, and they're as poor. They were anyway at that stage, as poor a side as I've seen at that level. Certainly, just kind of glad to be at that level. So that at home, when I saw the draw, was the one that I kind of shouldn't say this now, but banked 3 points. So I would be hoping that we should be able to take care of them, regardless of what state we're in at this minute in time. That we should be. And if you have any aspirations of getting out of this not group stage league phase now, you have to win a game like that at home. Go, regardless of whether they rest players or they don't rest players, we should be beating them at home.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Colin, given that the manager's current approach doesn't seem to be working, do you see him making any major changes, tactical or personnel-wise?
We've still got one or two injuries, so I don't know. I really don't know. When I look at the options that he has, there isn't a huge amount, really. You know what I mean? Cortez will still be out, so you could argue, to give Igamani more minutes, bringing him on earlier on in the game or starting him. It seems to me that the team currently picks itself, because we've really not got a huge amount of options. I looked at that Rangers bench today, and it's just like, well, if we need a goal, there's really not much there. There's no one really on the bench that makes you think, right, well, if we're in a situation, they'll come on and change it. And that's how it transpired. We made several changes, and it never really had any sort of desired impact. He might need to make a change at centre half, because it looks like Proper might be injured. I think the team at the moment picks itself. That team that started today, I think more often than not, will be the team that he'll go with. But we'll see what comes.
Any you kind of have the same opinion that the manager's kind of limited with what he can do in terms of personnel?
Yeah, there's not a lot on the bench that really fills you with loads of confidence. I would be inclined to maybe make a couple of changes. I would probably bring McCausland in, see if you can get something from him. Don't think he's guaranteed to be the answer either. I wouldn't mind seeing a change in that midfield, although we don't have greatest options. Maybe Raskan, but again, you don't know what you're going to get. You could get a decent performance, or you could get absolute rubbish. So yeah, there's not a lot within the squad. Injuries included as well that we can do to dramatically change it. Do you give Egeman a start? I wouldn't be against it, put it that way. But do I think Clement will do it? No, I don't. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I think that's as good a place to end it as any. All that's left for me to do is thank my guest, Colin. Thanks as always.
Thank you.
Ben, thanks for joining.
Cheers, Brian.
As well as being live tonight, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Acast, and Stitcher. Players will be back on Friday night to look back at the FCSB match and look ahead to our league fixture against St Mirren. It'll be John and Grant with you then. Until next time, bye for now.